shot twice, friends murdered, sparred with Mike Tyson, you fought Lennox, been to prison.
I've had run-ins with the Grim Reaper many, many times over my life. Winners never quit and quitters never win. How did it feel getting hit by Mike Tyson? Very painful. That's how it felt. If he missed you with a punch, you'd get pneumonia from the draft. I'm asking for a boxing match. I'm not asking for a street fight. I wouldn't be afraid of him on the street. I fear no man on the street. We're both proud fighting men. We'll stand in the centre of the ring, touch gloves, smash each other to bits.
Just a quick one. I want to thank our main sponsors, Bauer Security. They're a UK-based security firm that cover the entertainment, industrial, corporate and construction industries. I'm going to leave the links to their Instagram and their website below in the description so you can contact them direct. You can also find my own social media platforms down there too. And if you've got this far and you haven't yet liked and subscribed to the channel, can I ask that you do so? It takes 2 seconds, costs nothing, and it helps us improve the experience for the guests and for those at home watching. Thanks again. Your support is greatly appreciated, and I hope you enjoy this one.
Joe.
It's a pleasure to meet you, Liam.
And you, thank you for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
I appreciate this. I've only seen you popping up all over the internet, all over social media platforms. You've got misfits, I think, have agreed that you and John Fury can fight as long as you both agree to the fight. And that's how I first come across you properly. I've seen you in films, but never really knew the man beyond the character. You've got a hell of a story yourself. You're not just the man that's hoping to fight John Fury. You've been shot at. We've been shot twice. You've had your friends murdered. You've sparred with Mike Tyson. You fought Lennox. You've been to prison. You've lived a very, very colourful life. And not only are you still standing, you're still ready to put your fist back up. So let's touch base firstly on that, as it's hot off the press. You and John Fury, there's clearly a beef. I thought you two were friends. I was under the impression that you was friends. So I suppose cover that and then tell me who initiated the beef.
No, there's no beef. Me and John are friends. It's nothing personal. Same as most fights shouldn't be personal. Promoters and managers make it personal to sell tickets. I saw John challenging any 58-year-old on the planet that's brave enough, courageous enough to fight him. I'm brave enough. I'm courageous enough. I've stepped up to the mark. Now it's up to him to accept that I've answered his call out for a fight. Misfits, MAMS and KSI, incredible organisation what they're doing for boxing. I really do love what they're doing for boxing. They're bringing in a whole new audience and boxing's blossoming through them, because they've got hundreds of millions of YouTube fans around the world that might not necessarily watch boxing. It's a sport I love. It's a sport I participated in, amateur and pro, all around the world. And if 1% of them hundreds of millions watching the YouTubers box suddenly decide, I like this sport, and then they start watching mainstream boxing, professional boxing, amateur boxing, white-collar boxing, then boxing benefits. It's like when Andrew Flintoff boxed, and people ask me, what do you think, Joe? I said, it's great. I said, he's a world-class cricket player, bringing a cricket fan base in to watch him box that might not necessarily watch boxing. And if a small percentage of them cricket fans suddenly say, I like this sport, then the boxing's gained cricket fans. Now they're gaining YouTube fans. And for me, that's wonderful because I love the sport of boxing and I admire the boxers. I admire anybody that's got the courage to fight, whether it be in the cage, whether it be on the mats, whether it be in the boxing ring. You're born with courage. You can't give a person courage. You can teach them skills to fight, but if they haven't got the courage to fight, you can't do contact sports. You play football, you play basketball, you play golf, you play tennis. You don't play a contact form of combat. It's a fight. I just happen to be in the boxing world. The cage combines kickboxing, karate, jiu-jitsu, judo, wrestling. It involves so many forms of fighting. And they are incredible fighters. because it was hard enough blocking the fists without having to block elbows, knees, kicks, you know. But I admire and respect all fighters, male and female now.
I do.
But John has got under my skin a little bit.
I was going to say, as a friend, to know that you're prepared to go full contact with him, basically, you're prepared to put your fists up and smash one of your friends in the face. So he must have got under your skin.
He's got under my skin with his statements and his comments and the way he's conducted himself, because boxing doesn't just need great fighters. Not that me and John were great. We were just average fighters. We were both tough guys, you know. I wasn't really any good. Neither was John. We were just tough. But any potential that we would have had, we wouldn't have fulfilled our full potential anyway as a professional, because John would have worked on the building site, then gone to fight. I worked the door in a pub, I worked the door in a nightclub, and I worked in the airport. As I was a professional fighter, working 3 jobs, you know, trying to get a few hours sleep, trying to get a few hours training. If there's anything left in the tank, I don't drink or smoke or take drugs. If there's anything left in the tank, if I get a good training camp where I don't have to work 3 jobs, it'll bring out whatever's left. And I'm sure John the same. 2 donkeys make a good race. We're both proud fighting men. We'll stand in the centre of the ring and we'll hit each other. Now, I've been hitting the chin by 3 heavyweight champs of the world, Mike Tyson, Lennox, Lewis and Bruce Seldon, and I wasn't knocked out. John was hit by 1 heavyweight champion of the world and he was knocked out. So I do believe that my chin is better than his. I hope my chin is better than his when the fight starts or when the fight happens, because that's what it's going to boil down to. Who's got the best granny chin? And I believe that mine is better than his.
And do you think the fight will happen?
I'm hoping it does. Misfits Boxing seem to think they can make it. They've matched up incredible fights so far with different celebrities, and they seem to think, MAMS and KSI seems to think that they can make it happen. The money is incredible, what they're paying some of these people to fight. The following that they have on the internet is incredible. So it seems like the world wants to see this fight. Whatever John has done to upset boxing fans around the world, and I think it's his conduct, throwing tables up in the air. His son is the heavyweight champion of the world, an incredible heavyweight champion of the world, a heavyweight that could live in any era, I believe. And John really should be behaving himself better at press conferences, at weigh-ins, in the company of
Legends.
other fighters, legends, yeah, you know. And I just think that he's not conducting himself the way he should be. I can see embarrassment in his sons as well, Tommy and Tyson, sometimes when they
I'm surprised they've not pulled him aside and said, mate, do me a favour, Dad, don't do that.
Maybe they have behind the scenes. Maybe they have.
Because he's sort of bringing like the WWF to boxing with his pulling his top off at press conferences alongside people like Mike Tyson.
Very aggressive. It's very aggressive. And these YouTubers are young adults that probably wouldn't be used to aggression like that. I've seen on video and the internet family members of young YouTubers that he's bullied, for want of another word, right? Parents telling him off. And then in fronting the parents, I'll smash you. And I'm thinking to myself, why would you conduct yourself like that? You know? Yeah, he's a tough man, but his antics are wrong. So when he's calling out Mike Tyson to fight, I'm thinking to myself, you're not in the league of Mike Tyson, John. But I admire his courage. He fancies the job against Mike Tyson. Then he's calling out any 58-year-old on the planet that's brave enough to fight him. Now I've stepped up to the mark. Now he doesn't seem to want to know. But if the contracts are put in front of him and the money is offered to him, let's see what happens then. Misfits Boxing seem to think they can make the fight.
Hopefully, I mean, it'll be a hell of a fight to watch. So, as John Fury's antics, you were once friends. Has his behaviour...
We're still friends now.
Right, okay.
I don't hate John Fury, right? And if he's watching this, I don't hate you, John. I want to fight you. I won my way to the Irish finals one year, and Cathal Ryan was the head doorman in the nightclub where I worked. He won his way to the final. I won my way to the final. And we battered each other in the final. It was one hell of a fight. We went to work on the nightclub afterwards, all busted up. People coming into the club, black and blue. They're saying, my God, there must have been some punch-up tonight. We were after boxing each other. I was the best man at his wedding. I'm still friends with the man today. I spoke to a man yesterday on the phone, Bobby Wells, who gave me a lesson when I was 17, Ireland versus England. I was a little fat kid, and it was my first senior fight. And he schooled me because I was a novice compared to this man, ABA champion. He won the bronze medal shortly afterwards. Him and Lennox Lewis got the bronze medal in the 84 Olympics. But we haven't met since that fight, but we speak to each other regular. And I tell him, he helped me become the man I am today. The same as Mike Tyson helped me become the man I am today. Because I got battered by better fighters than me. So that made you want to learn more, train harder. Because I thought, if these guys can do this to me because their skill and because their fitness level, then maybe if I get the skills and I get the fitness level, maybe I can improve like them. And that's what sort of you need to do. You need to learn off better fighters than you, and I believe I have. I've learned the hard way. You know, I've been schooled and caned by better fighters than me. Some of them went on to be world champions. Some of them went on to be European champions. But I tried my best when I was in there, and that's all you can do, Liam, is try your best. On the day, my best wasn't good enough. And when I fight John Fury, if the fight happens, I hope my best and what's left in the tank will be good enough to beat John Fury. But like I said, it's nothing personal. I don't hate the man. I just don't like the way he's conducting himself.
So have you lost a little bit of respect for him?
Have you?
That's a better way to put it.
Yeah.
Because John Fury's conduct has led you to losing respect for him.
Even his response, any man come near me and I'll rip his face off. And I thought, why would you even talk like that? I was getting called them, then I was getting called they, then eventually he called me by my own name. He called me Joe Egan. I've earned the right to be called by my own name. I've worked hard. And I've had some hard times. My life has been like a roller coaster. And I use this analogy when I tell people, see, when you're on a life support machine, and I've been on a life support machine. I've been on a life support machine for 5 days. I was in a coma for 3 days. I've had a hard life, Liam, right? But I tell people, when the heart monitor beats, it goes up. And when it goes down, beep, beep, it goes up, beep, it goes down. And that's life. Peaks and troughs, ups and downs. You've got to experience highs and lows in life. You've got to experience the lows to appreciate those. I'm not talking about drugs. I've never took drugs in my life. See, when it flatlines, you're dead, right? And I've been close to death. I've had run-ins with the Grim Reaper many, many times over my life. And I think that John Fury in his response, when I see you, I'm going to take my coat off. I'm thinking to myself, I'm asking for a boxing match. I'm not asking for a street fight. I wouldn't be afraid of him on the street. I fear no man on the street. Do you understand? And I'm not going to start a row on the street. I've avoided many, many rows on the street doing my security, on the doors and everything else. So why would I start a fight with the man on the street? But his response was thuggish. My coat's coming off. I'm thinking to myself, Mike Tyson didn't say that to you when you challenged Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson didn't say, John Fury, I don't like this challenge. Disrespectful. When I see you, I'm taking my coat off to you and we're going down on the street. If Mike Tyson didn't say that to John when he sat next to him when he was challenging him. But John's reaction to me, my coat's coming off when I see you on the street. I'm thinking to myself, why would you react like that? That's thuggish. There's no money on the street. I've had thousands of street fights over the years. There's no money on it. And there's no real pride in it. There'd be pride in the boxing ring. If he beats me in the boxing ring, fair play to him. If I beat him, fair play to me.
And apart from John Fury plucking out an age which you just so happen to be, what is it within you that makes you want to get back in the ring at 58?
Just a challenge, Liam. You know, you get to a stage in life. I haven't boxed for 20 years. I haven't cycled a bike on the street for 20 years either. But I could go out and cycle a bike. I'm not going to win Tour de France, but I could cycle a bike. I know my way around the boxing ring. This challenge has come up. I've stepped up to the mark. I started back doing a bit of training. I've got a good training camp arranged if the fight's made. It's just a challenge. It's just another challenge in life.
Is it something you think that you sort of subconsciously waiting for to make you feel alive again?
No, I've got a good life. You know, I work for good people, and they look after me well. I do security for John O'Connor, and he has Welsh Civils, and Ali, who has Lois Bullion. I've worked security all my life. I left school when I was 14 years of age. I was on the doors of nightclubs at 15. I left school with 2 swimming certificates. But I thought I was going to make my fortune in the boxing ring. I thought, I'll become champion of the world, because every fighter that climbs into the ring dreams about becoming a champion of the world. I wasn't good enough. I wasn't near good enough. I won Irish titles, which was a major achievement for me. But I dreamed about, making my fortune in the boxing ring. But I've always had the safety net of security. You know, I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't gamble, I don't take drugs. And I've worked hard all my life, you know. and I've got a good life. But we need challenges. And at this stage of my life, this is a good challenge.
It'll be good for both of you to do that as well. Because not many men at 58 would even consider it. It's ballsy. Even though you've got a boxing background and a whole life and career of boxing, it's still at 58 to put your head above the parapet in front of, well, it will be millions of people. To be prepared to do that, like, I salute you both.
Thanks very much. The world wants to see this happen. I can't believe the interest that's been shown. You know, the agents that look after my social media, I can't do social media. I don't know how to do them Instagram and the Twitter things. You know, my agents do all that. And they tell me, and the people I meet on the streets, I've been walking through supermarkets, I've been walking through parks, even down the gym. A gym I've used for over 20 years, Flex Fitness in Digbeth, Birmingham, Big Silly and Raza. And there's people coming over to me in the gym that I would see regular in the gym, but we wouldn't break conversation. I mean, coming over, telling me they're following this on the internet, and he's not particularly like John. Now, maybe that's the part he wants to play. He wants to play the baddie, you know, in life. He's actually not a bad person. I've met John many, many times. He's not a bad person. He's a nice enough guy, but it's just the way he conducts himself isn't particularly very nice.
I bet he's a great laugh. I mean, he is amusing.
I've been in the gym with him, right? He's got a good engine. I've watched him on the running machine. Years ago, we were down in, we were doing a show in Hastings, and we were staying in the, that fella off Dragon's Den, the Scottish fella, has the hotels.
Duncan Bannatyne.
Duncan Bannatyne. We're in Duncan Bannatyne's hotel. Beautiful it was. We were doing a show with Tyson Fury. And me and John were in the gym together. I was doing a bit of training. John was doing a bit of training. And I watched him on the running machine. And he's a big man. And he'd done about 5 miles on the running machine at a good pace. And I thought, I can see where Tyson gets his engine from. Good DNA, you know. So John's got a good engine on him. So if the fight happens, hopefully I get him out of there quick. You know, because the longer it goes, probably the better for him. His engine will be better than mine. But listen, I'll do the best I can on the night. I'm hoping the best that I've got will be too good for him. But yeah, we got on great. Me and John got on great. But now it's building up. It's building up and it's building up. I'm not going to get into gutter talk. Do you understand? That's not me. It's never been me. I pride myself on my manners, and I won't go down slander the man. I won't slate the man. I've said what I've had to say because that's how I feel. Do you understand? But I still haven't slated the man. I've given him the respect as a fighting man, right? And I do respect him as a fighting man. I'm a fighting man. And I'm hopefully that I'm a better fighting man than him.
Well, let's hope that comes to fruition.
Misfits Boxing will make it happen. They will entice him, I'm sure.
When will the fight take place, do you think, if it all goes ahead?
Well, I'd need at least 3 months. I've got 2 good sparring partners arranged, better fighters than me. Clifton Mitchell said he'd spar with me. He fought Elko Makrovic in an eliminator for the world title. He got beat by Makrovic, and Makrovic ended up fighting Lennox Lewis for the world title. Scott Welch, who fought Henry Akinwande, the man that actually knocked out John, for 12 rounds for the world title. Both better fighters than me. They've told me that they would help me prepare. So I know I'm going to get severely hurt in sparring because these 2 sparring partners, these 2 ex-heavyweight contenders are a lot better than me. But they will help me prepare. I've got a training camp arranged for Future Ventura with Adam, who's trained several world champions. I'll be training in the heat. I've had to run in winter cold mornings in Dublin. And it's a lot easier getting out of bed to go running in a summer's morning or heat than it is to get out of bed on a cold winter's morning. I remember my dad used to call me for my runs in the morning. And bitter cold, bitter winter mornings. And he said, come on, son, drag yourself out of bed, go running. Oh, Dad, I don't want to go running. He said, drag yourself out of bed. He said, it's like dragging yourself off the deck when you get decked. I said, Dad, no one's going to deck me. My chin's granite, my legs are strong. Anyway, I boxed in the Acropolis Games in 1987. I beat an Italian, I beat a Canadian. My left eye was badly damaged. I'm into the semi-finals, Liam. And I got a chance of getting into the final if I win. And a fighter's pride, even though I'm badly wounded, pride. And I've gone into the medical. My 2 cornermen, Jerry Hanna and Mickey Hawkins and Jerry Hanna, they said, Joe, your eye's too badly damaged. We don't want you to fight. I said, my pride. I said, I got to fight. If I win the fight, I'm in the final. I get a silver and have a chance of a gold. So I went to see the doctor. The Greek had had a bye in the first fight, and he only had to box once. I had to fight twice. So if they'd have given him a bye with me, he would have been into the final with 3 buys or 2 buys against the man that would have had to box 3 times. I think it was the Dutchman, Arno van der Luyden, 2 Olympic bronze medals. So I went in, doctor passed me. Should never have passed me. My eye was too badly damaged. So I've come out, and my cornerman said, Joe, you can't fight. I said, the doctor said I'm fit to fight. That's good enough for me. Anyway, I went at Georgia Stephanopoulos was the name of the Greek. Powerful man. I went in him in the first round because I only had 1 round before the eye completely closed. Second round completely closed. I didn't see the punch coming. And I'm on the deck. I didn't even know I'd been hit. I didn't feel it. And I'm flat on my back. First time I'd ever been put down in my life. Flat on my back. And I'm doing this, Liam. My cornerman thought I was calling him into the ring. I wasn't. I was looking for my bed sheets. I was asleep in bed. So from the moment he, honest to God, from the moment he hit me to where I fell, to where I'm on my back, to where I turn onto my side, I'm still trying to find my bed sheets. At least 15 seconds, I was asleep. And I saw with my right eye, I saw the referee go 5. I thought, I'm on the deck here. I dragged myself to my feet. My 2 cornermen were in the ring at that stage, and I fell into their arms. But I got beat on my feet. And that's what a fighter's pride is. You really want to hear the final bell. You know, that fighter's poem, stand up and fight like hell. Stand up and fight until you hear that final bell. Because that's what we want to hear. We want to hear the final bell. Unfortunately, that day I didn't. But I tried my best. Anyway, he went on to win the gold, so I lost to the eventual gold medalist. And I remember phoning my dad. I said, Dad, I won a bronze medal. He said, well done, son. He said, you okay? I said, well, my left eye's closed. I said, I'm a bit wounded. My pride is hurt because I got put down, Dad. You got put down, son? I said, I did, Dad, but I got to my feet and I got beat on my feet because all I wanted to do in life was to make my dad proud and my mum proud. My mum never wanted me to box. No mother wants to see a son get beaten up. She never wanted me to box. But I made my dad proud in the boxing, I think. You know, I hope. And I made my mum proud in the acting because she never wanted me to box. No mother wants to see her son getting hurt. And I got hurt in my fights. One fight I got 64 stitches after the fight. I got cut across the top of the eye, down the side of the eye, across the cheek, across the lip there, across the other. It was a bloodbath of a fight. I won a big, one of my pro fights. I beat Carlton Headley. Big, powerful athlete. He went on to be the Gladiator Raider. Big beast of a man. And it was a bloodbath of a fight. But I won, you know. But I've been badly cut in a lot of fights, badly wounded, ribs broke, jaw smashed, you know. But it's just a sport.
Was your dad a fighting man?
My dad was a hard man in his day. He boxed for Corinthians Boxing Club. Maxim McCullough used to train him. He was ex-European silver medalist. A gold medalist, I think, in 1947 European Championship, Maxim McCullough. And my dad was a tough man. But in every boy's eyes, your dad's the toughest man on the planet. In every boy's eyes. And in my eyes and my 2 brothers' eyes, I'm the eldest of 7 children. I got 4 younger sisters and 2 younger brothers.
And what year were you born?
1965. But, like I said, my dad worked away a lot. He was all over Europe working, and America. We only used to see him maybe a month or 2 a year, but he always sent the money home. Ireland's greatest export has always been its people. You know, they've gone all over the world to work. And when you go around the world, you meet so many people, Irish or Irish descendants, and you think for a small nation, you know, how did we get so many people around the world? But like I said, we emigrated because the country couldn't sustain, for whatever reason, you know, couldn't sustain the people.
What was it like growing up in Dublin in the 70s?
Well, the thing was, we used to come to England to visit my dad. I'll just tell you a little bit about my hard life as a child because I got bullied, Liam. And if you ask a lot of fighters' backgrounds, most of them got bullied. We used to visit my dad in England when I was a kid, visit him in different cities around the UK, and we came to Manchester in particular. I was 7 or 8 years of age, and I made my Holy Communion in Manchester. And on the day I made my Holy Communion, I was a little boy I was with called Richard Fox. And I had my Holy Communion medal on my chest and my waistcoat, going to visit some family members in Manchester, or family friends in Manchester. And 2 bully boys, 15 or 16, tried to take my Holy Communion medal. and I held on to my medal and they knocked out my 2 front teeth. I was only a little boy. And I got bullied in England because I had the Irish accent. So I picked up the English accent. And when I went home to Dublin, I got bullied in Dublin because I had the English accent. So I took some bad beatings from the bullies in my life as a child, and I've experienced bullying as a man as well, as an adult. People think it just happens as a child. It doesn't. It happens as an adult as well. And like I said, I'll bow to royalty out of respect. I bow to no man out of fear. I can't do it. I'd rather die standing on my feet than live crawling on my belly. And when the bullies had finished beating on me, rather than hit me more, rather than hit my brothers and sisters, I used to jump back up and say, please hit me more, don't hit them. And I protect my brothers and sisters. So I could sustain and take a beating second to none. I got battered with from baseball bats to 2x4s, cricket bats. You know, I took bad beatings when I was a kid. In the boxing ring, it was actually quite safe for me. There was only one man hitting me. Even if it was Mike Tyson or Lennox Lewis that got boxing gloves on, you got a referee, you've got a break in between rounds, you've got the best of medical care at ringside. You had none of them luxuries when the bullies were beating you. You know, you just got battered and battered more and battered more. And it got to where I could just absorb the beatings like a sponge. And that's what in the boxing ring, I've beaten men in the boxing ring that were better than me. Only the reason why is because I could take the beating. When I beat Selden, who went on to win the world heavyweight title, he battered me in round 1. I'm boxing in Atlantic City in the Sands Hotel and Casino in Atlantic City. 10 great world champions in attendance: Jake LaMotta, Rocky Graziano, Joe Frazier, Jersey Joe Walcott, Sandy Sadler, Billy Conn, Vito Antuofermo, Floyd Patterson, Chico Vija, I think Alexis Aguero. There was 10 great world champions in attendance, and we were boxing in their honour. And Bruce Selden was just so brilliant. He hammered me in round 1, smashed me to bits, and I went back to my corner, and my corner man at the time said, Joe, we're retiring you on your stool. And I said, no, I'm not retiring on my stool. I've took this punishment of Mike Tyson, I've took this punishment of Lennox Lewis, and I've took this punishment many, many times in my life of the bullies. So I know I can take this beating. I'm going out for round 2. Winners never quit and quitters never win. I stepped off my stool and I walked to the centre of the ring. And Bruce Selden couldn't believe I was coming out for round 2. He'd caned me so bad in round 1. I couldn't get near him. He was too fast, too brilliant. The bell went, and while he was standing still, I hit him a body shot. I was allowed to hit him. The bell had gone. I hit him a body shot. I couldn't get near him in round 1. And I sunk the punch into the body, and it took the wind out of his sails. It hurt him. And then I went on to win, probably the best win of my career, only because I had the courage to step off my stool and step into the centre of the ring. And I had to go to hospital after that fight. I was in a bad way. I was busted up, even though I'd won. And what I didn't realise was outside of the ropes, what was happening outside of the ropes. I had enough trouble inside of the ropes. Jake LaMotta, the Raging Bull, was standing, fighting the fight outside of the ropes, because it was like a throwback to one of his fights. It was a war. He fell and he cut his eye and he hurt his arm. So I'm in the back of the ambulance ready to go to hospital, and they were delaying. And I thought, well, I haven't hurt Selden that bad, so they're not delaying for Selden. Why are they delaying? Then they brought Jake LaMotta. Now I'm in agony in the back of the ambulance. The adrenaline's wearing off. I'm in a lot of pain. My body, my face is badly damaged. And Jake LaMotta, the Raging Bull, is brought to the back of the ambulance. And he looked at me and he went, the heavyweight, great fight, kid. Best anaesthetic I've ever had, Liam. The pain was just lifted. The Raging Bull complimented me on a fight. And we became friends in the back of that ambulance. And we stayed in touch. I visited him in New York City. He came to visit me in Birmingham. He did a book signing with me in 2 cities, Doncaster and Carlisle. And to have the Raging Bull, one of the greatest fighters of all time, sitting signing a book with you was the ultimate compliment. We did an interview. It's on television. And they said to Jake LaMotta, are you and Joe friends? A long time. He said, me and Joe go way back. He said, Joe was like me. Joe would fight anybody. To get a compliment like that by a man of his calibre and stature, it makes all the beatings that I've took worthwhile when people like that compliment you. Legends of the ring compliment you. And I've had so many of them say to me, Joe, you're an abundance of courage.
Did you being bullied have anything to do with you starting boxing in the first place?
That's why I started. My dad encouraged us to learn to box.
So you could fight back?
Yeah, fight back.
Do you remember the first time you walked into a boxing gym?
Yeah, I got battered.
How did it feel?
Horrible.
Was you nervous?
Terrified. Terrified, because you're going to get hit. You're going to get hit. And you're thinking to yourself, is it going to hurt more
than the bat?
Yeah, because that's the thing. It's the fear of the unknown. That's the worst. And I got battered. My first ever amateur fight, I got smashed a bit. Steve Collins, he went on to win 2 world titles. I was 11. I was 10, he was 11 and a half, or I was 11 and he was 12 and a half. He was a year and a half older than me. And when you're that age, that makes a big difference. And he battered me.
That's another legend.
2 world titles, yeah. We're friends since we were kids, I've been to his weddings. He's been married twice, went to both his weddings. And incredible fight. I'm doing a dinner show with him soon in Leeds. I've shared the tops table with so many great champions of the world. It's a privilege and an honour to get applauded alongside these champions of the world, to share the top table with them and be applauded alongside them, because I never achieved what they achieved.
And I can see how you and Steve Collins would get along based on the very small snippet of time that I got the pleasure of spending with Steve Collins. I was on the Underground in London with a friend of mine years and years ago. I was a very young man, and we've got on the Underground, and there he is, Steve Collins. And at the time, him and Eubank were at each other, so he was hot off the press. It's like, oh, you're Steve Collins. He shook our hands, and we got on 2 or 3 different trains together, going to the same place, and he gave us all the time in the world.
He's very humble.
He just spoke to us like we were normal people. When he didn't have to do that, he probably gets everybody saying, oh, you're Steve Collins, especially at the time he was at the height of his fame. And I thought, it's always stuck with me. What an absolute gentleman. So it's no surprise that you and him get along.
But that's the Irish for you. Do you understand? The Irish are like that.
Yeah.
Barry McGuigan's the same, very humble.
Have you got a relationship with Barry?
Yeah. I boxed for the same manager, Mr. Eastwood, or I went professional. And I love Barry. I love Steve as well, and both of them done pieces for my book. They done, I don't know what they call it when they do a piece about you at the, like a forward type of thing for your book. And Barry McGuigan, he wrote a lovely piece about me, said the same thing, courageous. Steve said the same. And when I did my book launch in Canary Wharf, Steve came to my book launch, Barry McGuigan came to my book launch, and both of them queued with the normal people. Both of them queued, champions of the world. Both of them queued.
Well, that's why they're champions.
Yeah, but they're the people's champions,
yeah.
And
it's the attitude that controls your attitude, isn't it?
But they both queued with the normal people. Thousands and thousands of people in Canary Wharf when the book was launched. Cass Pennant published the book, and Mike Tyson did the forward for the book. It was one of the best days of my life. And I know everybody was there for Mike Tyson, but Mike Tyson was there for me. And when you got several world champions were in attendance, Alan Minter was in attendance as well. I'm meeting up with Alan's son afterwards, Ross, as we spoke earlier on. Alan was in attendance. Chris Pyatt was in attendance. Silky Jones, poor Silky Jones, Chris Pyatt, Steve Collins, Barry McGuigan, Charlie Magri, Brian London was there. Loads of great champions in attendance.
Still a full memory.
Oh, listen, 2005. Yeah, listen, different things have happened in my life. Hard times that you try to forget, and the good times that you try to remember, but listen, it's life. Like as what we said earlier on, you've got to experience hard times to appreciate good times.
And how did it come about to even meet Mike Tyson?
I went over on the Irish boxing team. I was 17.
And just for context, how old were you when you started boxing?
9 when I went into a boxing gym first. I went into a boxing gym in London called Earlsfield Boxing Club. Mr. Parmenter, Keith Druitt, Bill, Mr. Jackson, his 2 boys boxed, Alan and Lenny Jackson. And there was Patrick Pasley. He went on to win the ABAs. There were some great fighters in there. So Frank Bruno had actually boxed for Earlsfield. And then he went to a different club. So I was 9 and went in there. And then I went home to Dublin when I was 10. And then joined the Dunno Boxing Club. And had my first fight against Steve Collins when I was 11. Battered me. Punched out of me. But helped me become the man I am today as well, because I trained hard. I fought him again after they beat me again, but he was too good for me. And like I said, he went on to win 2 world titles. But when I went out to America, I boxed in Atlantic City. I was only 17, but I'd left school, like I said, when I was 14 years of age. I was on the doors of nightclubs when I was 15, and I thought I was going to make my livelihood with boxing, my fortune with boxing. But lucky enough, I got the safety net of security to fall back on, because I didn't make my fortune with boxing. And I went out to America, and I was big for my age, but I hadn't got that mature man strength. And I boxed a guy called William Dawson, who was his name? Big Marine Sergeant anyway, big 28-year-old powerhouse of a man. And he battered me. But I stayed on my feet. I could take a beating. He won. I lost. But whatever I did in losing, Liam, impressed Floyd Patterson. And he gave me the chance to stay in America. And he said, you got a good chin and you got a lot of courage. You haven't got much skills, but we can work on your skills. Would you like to stay in America? I said, yeah. I wouldn't have had the money to come back. I remember phoning my mum. I said, Mum, Floyd Patterson has given me the chance to stay in America. Oh, son, you'll never come home. I said, I'll be home next year, Mum. Anyway, went to Gleason's gym with Floyd, Al Gavin and Bob Jackson, who'd done business with Cuss. I think they got an original gym off Cuss. They gave me a sparring session with two heavyweights, Art Tucker, and I can never remember the other heavyweight's name. I'd love to remember who it was. And I gave a good account of myself. They said, look, there's a young heavyweight in the Catskills called Mike Tyson, 17 years of age, looking for sparring partners. I said, how old? They said 17. I was so happy to be the same age as me. I didn't know who he was. I'd never heard of him. But he was knocking out men left, right and centre. I didn't know this. I was just happy to hear he was the same age as me, because I'd been fighting men. And when I got to the Catskills, I met Cuss and Camille and Marnie and Jay and Tom and the Hilton brothers, and it was such a warm welcome. And it was just beautiful. And it was like a home from home. Then I met Mike. He was smaller than me. As it turned out, several months younger than me. And he spoke with a bit of a lisp. And I thought, I'm going to batter you. I really believed, as I'm meeting him, I'm too much for him. I'm bigger, I'm older. But we embraced. We spoke about history of Irish boxing, Barry McGuigan in particular, because Barry had the relationship at the time with Mr. Eastwood, and Mike had the relationship with Cuss, like father and son. And when I used to speak to Barry, I used to tell Barry, Mike loves you. Barry didn't believe me. And when Barry came to the book launch, Mike asked for a private audience with Barry and his son Shane. Shane couldn't understand the affection that Mike had for Barry. And I said, Shane, that's not just chat dad. That's Barry McGuigan, one of Ireland's greatest world champions. Anyway, I knew the history of Barry and his achievements. So me and Mike, we hit it off. We walked, we talked, we went upstairs to the top of the house. Mike at the whole top of the house. And he had the cine reel. He had access to the biggest collection of fight footage in the world. His two managers at the time, Jim Jacobs and Bill Caton, they had the biggest fight library. So Mike had access to the footage that he was like an encyclopedia on boxing. He knew, and he used to sit there watching. To me, there's only so much boxing you can watch. Mike, there wasn't enough. He lived through it more than I lived through it. And he used to say, Joe, if that left hook had landed, he said, that would have changed the history of that weight division. And he would analyse every fight, every fighter. And he's like a walking encyclopedia on boxing and boxers. And we got on so well. Next day, went running together. Got on great. Come back to the house. He took off like a gazelle after about a mile. He was an incredible runner. Anyway, come back to the house. Relaxed, a bit of food. Get ready to go to the gym in the afternoon. Getting onto the minibus. Suddenly all these big powerhouses of men appeared. Now they were in a different part of the house. They were in Lennox. And I'm looking at these big, powerful men walking onto the minibus. And the only way they were walking very somber, Liam. They were walking like men going to the gallows. That's the only way to describe it. But they knew it was coming. Stupid Paddy here didn't know it was coming. I'm so relaxed. I'm feeling confident. I think I've got this boy's measure. I'm older. I'm bigger. I've got his measure. They're getting onto the minibus. I'm relaxed. Get to the gym. I'm relaxed. Cuss said, right, shadowbox, warm up. I'm shadowboxing, I'm warming up. Cuss said, bandage up. I'm bandaging up, getting ready to spar. Me and Mike are going to spar, two boys. The men are going to spar each other. They're looking very somber. I'm looking around for Mike. Then I see him in the ring, stripped to the waist. I'm looking at him thinking, that's not the same boy that I met last night that I watched fights with. That's not the same boy I ran with this morning. That's not the same boy I had breakfast with this morning. That's not the same boy I sat next to on the minibus. He was pacing the ring like a lion in the cage, stripped to the waist, his physique. I'd never seen. I don't remember seeing it on a man like that. A neck, shoulders, biceps, chest. 17 years of age. You could feel the power from inside that ring coming out. And I thought, that's not the same boy. Cuss pointed to one of the powerful men to get into the ring to spar with Mike. Mike hit him a right hand, knocked him spark out. And I tell people, I'm not ashamed to say, I ruined a good pair of underpants at that moment in time. I shit myself. I thought, there's no way a 17-year-old boy should have that power. A couple more got in, they got knocked out. I was number 4. And I got battered for 3 minutes. I got out. But I stayed on my feet for 3 minutes. A couple more got in. I had to get back in again. I'd done another round. I'd done 2 rounds with him that day and got severely hurt for 6 minutes. But the madness in me, because I do believe that fighters have to have a bit of madness in them. I stayed on. I stayed on with Mike for nearly 2 years, over 2 years actually. And very proud to say he never put me down. Made me cry so many times, hurt me so many times, battered me many, many times, but never put me down. In one particular sparring session, there was 4 white sparring partners, which was unusual. Normally there'd be some black fellas. And he knocked 3 of the white sparring partners out. I stayed on my feet. And at the end of the spar, he says, Joe Egan is the toughest white man on the planet. Far from it. I was the toughest white man in the gym that day. But what a compliment from a man like Mike Tyson. He used to speak to my mum regular. And she used to say, oh, Mike, thank you so much for looking after my son. He was battering me week in, week out. But I was earning good money. And the money I earned helped shape my brothers and sisters' lives. There was nowhere to spend the money in the Catskills. I used to go to the Bank of Ireland. Every 3 or 4 weeks, me and Mike would take a trip into Manhattan. I go to the Bank of Ireland on 50th and 5th in Manhattan, and it cost me $15 to ship the money home once a month, whatever I'd earned that particular month. And it helped shape my brothers and sisters' lives. So the longer I stayed with Mike, the more I earned. And like I said, there was nowhere to spend it. Mike used to speak to my mum regular. And on this particular day, he said, how's your mother doing, Joe? They've been speaking on and off on the phone for 22 years and they'd never met. I said, she's not so good, Mike. She had a lump removed from her neck and that we were very concerned. It was cancer. My Uncle Brian had died of cancer, 47, never smoked. And he's like, my mum was a smoker. I lost my mum and dad in 2022. My dad went on the 24th of April at 85 and my mum went on the 28th of December. She was 80. And it was a horrible year for me, 2022. But try not to cry now.
That's all right.
I cry all the time.
Well, things have an everlasting effect, especially when you lose people that you love and adore. And it's very fresh, and 2022 is only, it's 2 years ago. It's nothing. It's a fresh wound.
I was determined not to cry in this podcast.
It's all right.
We flew into Dublin to go and see my mother.
When was this?
18 years ago. 18 years ago, because I'm friends with Mike 41 years now. So it was 22 years they've been speaking on the phone. And Mike embraced my mum after 22 years speaking on the phone. And this is a man that can break bones with punches. And a powerful man, as we know. And he embraced this fragile woman, and it was beautiful to see. And they started talking about birthdays. And Mike's birthday is the 30th of June, and my mum's birthday was the 12th of July. And Mike said, Mrs. Egan, he said, I remember on my 18th birthday, 21 years previous, because we were together when we were 17, so it was his first birthday while we were together. He said, you sent over a birthday present. You sent a shoebox with some potato chips, Irish potato crisps, some money in an envelope. Would have been very little money. And some sweatshirts, would have been second-hand sweatshirts, 21 years previous. And my mum looked at Mike and she said, do you remember that, Mike? He said, Mrs. Egan, he said, very few people have given me anything in my life. Yes, I remember that. My wife, Ruth, she got choked up. Scott Welch got choked up. They had to leave the room. I broke down crying. I fell apart. I cry a lot, Liam. And Mike embraced my mum. And he looked at me, excuse the language, I don't curse much. He looked at me, he goes, Joe, motherfucker, you're always crying. He made me cry so many times. And I thought to myself, this is a man that could have been a billionaire athlete, remembering a couple of packets of crisps, a couple of pounds in an envelope and a couple of second-hand sweatshirts 21 years ago. I guarantee you can't remember what you got 21 years ago for a present, neither can I. But it shows you what it meant to that man. And even with all these achievements, I don't envy his life, what he's had to endure in his life. I've had a hard life. You've probably had a hard life too, but nothing compared to what that man's had to endure in his life as a child to a man. You know, even with all his achievements, he's had such a hard life.
And did you get to see a lot of his hardships in person when you was over there?
I joined the camp with Cuss, so I saw the minding of Mike. I left when Cuss took ill. I left the camp. I wasn't around with Mike. I used to visit him, but I wasn't around with him when the Don Kings took over.
Because they had a big fallout, didn't they?
I don't particularly like Don King, right? I worked for Don. I sparred a lot of future Mike Tyson opponents. And I don't particularly like Don for the way he is abused. Boxing is the only sport in the world where the lambs rule the lions. And when you can see heavyweight champions of the world being abused by Don King, and he's abused a lot of them, Mike Tyson was just one in particular. That man has abused a lot of heavyweight champions of the world and other champions of the world as well. And it's sad to see, because professional boxing is the hardest earned money in the world. And when you've got people, the likes of Don King and other managers and promoters, putting their arm into these men's earnings, hard earnings, and not giving them the just rewards. And you don't see managers or promoters having to stand on the doors of nightclubs when their careers are finished, but yet you see heavyweight champions of the world having to stand on the doors of nightclubs, and heavyweight champions of the world, Mike Tyson in particular, having to claim bankruptcy. The man's had hundreds and hundreds of millions pass through his accounts.
Did Don King fleece him for a lot of money?
A lot of people have fleeced Mike Tyson for a lot of money. You know, Don was just probably one of many, because...
And you actually knew Don King as well?
Yeah, I worked for Don. You know,
that's interesting to know. What did he have about him where he was able just to get that much control? Was he heavily connected with the underworld?
Very heavily connected with the underworld. As a man on his own, he's just a man on his own. But when you've got an army behind you, I don't know which particular army, maybe it was the mafia, I don't know. But when you've got a man like him that can abuse heavyweight champions of the world and get away with it, he's not on his own.
No, and you say Don King's responsible for murders?
Don, as far as I'm aware, I know he served time for a manslaughter charge. You know, I believe he's supposed to have murdered 2 people. Maybe it's hearsay, I don't know for sure. But I know he was a dangerous man. I believe one of them was on a toss school, a gambling toss coin, and he's supposed to have killed a man. But sad, really.
Sad for him. He's going to have to die knowing all that, the lives he's ruined.
He's ruined a lot of people's lives. I know Tim Witherspoon, another great heavyweight champion of the world, has had court battles with him. Tim had legal battles with him most of his career. But listen, any heavyweight champion of the world, you're brave to do it too, you know, because to me, they're the most powerful man on the planet, the heavyweight champion of the world.
Apart from being a tremendous boxer, Mike Tyson also, he had that look in his eye that he could kill, in or out the ring.
Oh yeah, Mike made some savage statements when he fought Jesse Ferguson. He said, I want to drive the bone of his nose into his brain. Now that's... He wouldn't have wanted to do that. It's just a talk to build up the fight.
He could certainly do that, couldn't he? He wanted to eat someone's children in one press conference,
listen,
didn't he?
That was Lennox Lewis. I think that him and Lennox had a war of words, but they've got great respect for each other. You know, boxing first and foremost gives you self-respect. Then it gives you respect for your opponent. But you've got to build up the fight. You've got to say things. You've got to eyeball each other. You know, so Mike would have said things that he wouldn't have meant. It's just a build up to the fight. You know, but
so outside of the ring, what was Mike Tyson like?
Lovely,
kind.
Yeah, very kind, very decent.
So knowing Mike the way you do,
yes,
and that he's kind and generous and he's considerate and he remembers things from 21 years previous. 1992, when he gets convicted for rape in the hotel. When you heard that news, what was your initial reaction to that, knowing him as well as you do?
I was a character witness for that. I wasn't in the room with him, right? But Desiree Washington was a Sunday school teacher, teaching children the principles and morals of life. Mike Tyson was a married man. She went to a married man's room, a married man with a reputation as a womanizer. She was out dancing the next day. Rape is a heinous crime. I've got 4 sisters and we all have mothers, right? She went dancing the next day. She was boasting to her roommates that she was Mike Tyson's new girl. He was a guest at a Miss Black America beauty pageant. He was like a child in a sweet shop. He could have had his pick of any beautiful black woman. And by all accounts, he walked into the disco, the nightclub, with another beautiful black woman the next day. And she was a woman scorned. And she'd been used. I don't think he raped her. I wasn't in the room to get charged with a crime like that. I don't think he did it. One of the Kennedy clan was after getting let off on a case not so long before. And if Mike had been let off, it would have been drawn up again, dragged up again, the Kennedy case. And I believe Mike was sent down to Swanee. This is what I believe, right? We live in a free world as such. We're allowed to speak what we believe. Men and women died in the world wars, so we have freedom of speech. And this is what I believe. Like I said, I wasn't in the room. I wasn't there when it happened, but I saw what happened afterwards. And it wasn't the conduct of a woman that had been put through the ordeal that she said she was put through, which would have been an horrific ordeal. She said she fought him off for half an hour or whatever. Heavyweight champions of the world couldn't fight him off for 30 seconds. How can a young 19-year-old Sunday school teacher fight this beast of a man, powerhouse of a man, off for 30 minutes? I don't think it happened the way she described it. I think she was just a girl that was used. I'm not saying it was right what he'd done, but in my eyes, I don't think it was a rape. The jury was made up of mostly women. The judge was a woman judge, Judge Patricia Gifford. And I don't think Mike got a fair crack at a whip. His barrister wasn't a criminal barrister. His barrister was a tax avoidance barrister. When Mike walked into the courtroom, I've been in court. I know the workings of the courts. We live in a civilized society. The jury is made up of normal people, everyday people. The barristers, prosecution and defence are there to direct to the jury. The judge at the end of a trial sums up to the jury what he believes in the letter of the law is the way the jury should sway. You cannot judge an accused because they're wearing nice suits, they're wearing nice shoes, or look at the colour of his tie. You cannot judge a person like that. And most of the jury wouldn't know the law. So at the end of a case, where the prosecution and defence put their case forward, the judge sums up what he believes in his professional opinion is the way the jury should sway. Mike Tyson walked into that courtroom and the first statements of the judge, Mr. Tyson, you walk into this courtroom and you show no remorse for this crime. Now, any proper lawyer would have stood up and said, hold on a minute. I want an unbiased judge and I want an unbiased jury, a jury that's just been swayed before the trial even starts. They've already been told by the judge that Mike's a guilty man. And to me, that's like a hang 'em high court. Do you understand? It wasn't fair what happened to him.
And it was documented that Desiree, she went to his hotel room in the early hours. Is that right?
4 o'clock in the morning. She was kissing and cuddling him in the car. She knew what was going to happen. She was there with a man that had a reputation as a womanizer. And it's a tragic case of a man that, to me, was convicted for a crime he did not commit. He might have took advantage of his position of power, heavyweight champ of the world. You know, the girl, young girl and all, thinking her life's going to change. She's got to become Mike Tyson's new girl. You know, if you look at some young girls now, what's the title that some of these young girls want to be when they grow up? A wag. Wife and girlfriend of a football player. Why do they want to become doctors or barristers or pilots? You know, women suddenly now want to be, young girls want to become a wag. want to be a kept woman by a football player. You know, not all women. Not all women. Some women want to go out and achieve what they study for. And I wish them all the very best. Suffragettes did what they did so that women have equal rights. Look at them in the boxing ring. Champions of the world, Katie Taylor in particular. Muhammad Ali's daughter, Layla Ali. Jane Couch, some of these great fighting women. And fair play to them. There's women doctors, women barristers, women pilots, women tank drivers. Incredible what a woman can do. But it's sad when a woman just wants to be a kept woman.
Do you remember the reference you gave Mike in court?
Yeah.
What was your reference?
That I lived with Mike and I was there in the company of him and girls. And I saw his conduct. And he was polite. You know, one of the girls in particular, Angie was her name. I'll never forget it. We were young boys, 17, and he was courting Angie. And she was a secretary. And she used to do shorthand. And me and Mike used to have to guess what she was writing. Just squiggles. I never knew what shorthand was. I've heard about it. You know, secretaries doing shorthand writing. So me and Mike used to test her and play, you know, and she'd put down squiggles and then we'd write down what we'd said and then we'd say, okay, what does that squiggle say? And she'd tell us, word perfect, what the squiggles meant. So it was actually shorthand. So she was a secretary and that's what it was all about, shorthand writing. And we used to go to the cinema. We go to the cinema with girls and Huss's grandniece, Amy Pershing, Angie, me, Mike, Tom. You know, we'd all go to the cinema and I saw Mike with my sisters. I saw Mike around my sisters. You know, I saw Mike's a dignified man. Yes, he's a man. Men make mistakes. We're not machines. You know, we're not conditioned not to make mistakes. I'm sure when he was full of drink and unfortunately full of drugs, he might have been rude and crude. But I don't think he raped that girl.
No. Did you go and visit him in jail?
No, I didn't go and visit him in jail,
No.
I wrote to him, but I never visited him in jail.
And how did your duration in the States come to an end?
I came home. I used to come home at Christmas time to visit my family. And I came home this particular Christmas and I got a good job when I was home. You know, and I'd had a lot of years in America at that stage. And I wanted to go professional with the boxing. I didn't want to go professional in America. I thought I'd have a better chance in Ireland to go professional because I would have been a bigger fish in a small pond instead of a smaller fish in a big pond, you know. So I came home, got a good job while I was home, and went professional with Mr. Eastwood in Belfast. I gave a professional career a go. And that was the reason I came back from America, because I wanted to, even though I'd been earning money in America, you know, sparring and stuff, and I travelled as a sparring partner, I wanted just to give the professional fights a go rather than just the sparring.
And how old were you when you came back?
24.
24. And did you fight Lennox Lewis as an amateur or a pro?
As an amateur. I fought Lennox. I'd boxed I won the New York State Golden Gloves. I got beaten in the New York City Golden Gloves. I was training in the Olympic Training Centre in Lake Placid, and I was sparring with two of the heavyweights in Lake Placid, one called Ike Padilla and one called Tim Igo. And I was beating them up easy, you know. I'd been sparring with Mike. So these guys were I was beating them easy in sparring. And I'm boxing in the semi-final. I won the New York State Golden Gloves, and I'm boxing in the New York City Golden Gloves. And I'm in the semi-finals. And I said to my dad, Dad, if I win, I'm in the finals. I'm in the main Madison Square Gardens. One fight at a time, son. I said, no, I got the measure of this kid, Dad. I said, I can beat him. I'm beating him up in sparring. But I was thinking of the next fight, and he beat me. I've won a good few places in America, but when I fought Lennox, because I'd been sparring with Mike, psychologically, in my mind, if I could take Mike Tyson's punishment, I could take anybody's punishment. Now, the man that beat me in the New York City Golden Gloves got knocked out by the man that went on to win the American title. And then the American champion, as he was, fought against the Canadian champion, which was Lennox Lewis, and he got knocked out. So the New York champion, who'd beaten me, didn't want to fight Lennox Lewis because he'd been knocked out by the man that got knocked out by Lennox Lewis. So there had nobody to fight Lennox. He was the star of the Canadian team. The star of the New York team was a guy called Frankie Lyles, who went on to win the world super middleweight title. He was welterweight at the time. So there had nobody to fight Lennox. So I said, I'll fight him. They said, Joe, the man that beat you got beat by the man that got beat by Lennox Lewis. I said he got knocked out by the man that got knocked out by Lennox. But I wasn't knocked out. I can take Lennox's punishment. I've been taking it off Mike Tyson. I can take Lennox's punishment. So we fought in 1985 in Alexandria Bay on the Thousand Islands, just on the New York-Canadian border. And I gave a good account of myself, went 3 rounds. Lennox was number 2 in the world. He'd won the bronze in 84. And funny enough, the man I spoke to on the phone yesterday, Bobby Wells, he won the bronze in 84 as well. And Lennox then got the gold in 88. But I stood on my feet for the 3 rounds. I took a good beating. I'm good at taking a beating. And I took a good beating off Lennox. And Ali Bohem, who was Lennox's coach at the time, he asked me if I wanted to come to Canada to train with them and learn from them. But I was happy in New York at the time, you know. And I thanked them for the opportunity, but I was happy in New York. But Lennox went on to become a great heavyweight champion of the world. And the 2 men to beat him, Hasim Rahman and Oliver McCall, I believe that if he'd... There's an old saying, fail to prepare, be prepared to fail. And when Lennox fought both of them men, one of them he was doing an Ocean's 11 film, and the other one he was doing a publicity tour in South Africa with Nelson Mandela. God rest Nelson Mandela, one of the greatest human beings to enter this planet. But he didn't prepare for either of them, and they both knocked him out. When he came back and prepared, he beat both of them very easy. Lennox could have ended his career as an unbeaten heavyweight, one of the all-time greats. When he fought Mike, I don't think it was the best Mike Tyson. It wasn't the best Mike Tyson. It was a shell of a man, what Lennox beat. But he beat what was in front of him. It was a shell of a man, though. I think the best of Mike was long gone. I said in my book that when Cuss died, we never saw the full potential of Mike Tyson because fighters need minding. And Mike never got minded after Cuss died, you know, and fighters need minding. People don't think we do. We do need minding because of the pitfalls that are out there. The drink, the fast cars, the women. Sometimes it's the drugs. You know, so many distractions for a fighter.
And you've never gone down that route, have you?
No.
Don't drink?
Don't drink, don't take drugs.
So you've never had a pint of Guinness?
I had a taste of Guinness with my dad when I was 16 and I didn't like it.
Coming from Ireland, you got to.
Tasted it when I was 16, I didn't like it. I had a cider with my friends when I was 14, I didn't like it.
And that's the extent of your drinking?
That's the extent of my drinking. My dad used to drink enough for the 2 of us anyway. He was a good drinker. He used to say to people, I was a failure as an Irishman. It's expected of the baddies to drink, you know. But now I've no interest in alcohol.
Yeah, you're not missing much. Well, it gets you in trouble.
So I believe when I was on the doors, I used to see the conduct of people with the drink on them.
So when you was working the doors, was that in between your pro career?
I worked the doors as a pro fighter. Yeah, I worked the doors as a pro fighter. I worked the doors as an amateur fighter. You know, when I was boxing in New York, I worked the doors in New York as well. I worked the door in a pub called the Lady Liberty Tavern. When I left the Catskills, I worked in New York City.
Was it rough working the door in New York?
I had a few rows, and had a few rows in all the doors I've worked on. I tried to avoid the row. You know, I'm a good talker, and I try to avoid the row. And the thing is, I'm not afraid. You know, because if you can walk into that boxing ring and face an opponent in the boxing ring, nothing in life will face you. So when I stood on the doors, I could look a man in the eye and say, look, behave yourself. In the words of Dr. David Banner, the Hulk, you wouldn't like me when I'm angry.
You make a good Hulk.
Lou Ferrigno was the Hulk. I loved the Hulk.
Brilliant,
I loved it.
Did you ever get into weightlifting, talking of Lou Ferrigno?
I never really bothered with the weights. I do a little bit.
Because you're a good size, aren't you?
I've always been big because I never told you that story. When me and my brother were little boys, 12, 13, 14, we used to buy a bag of logs and we used to chop the logs into sticks. And we'd get the inner tube of a car and we'd cut the inner tube of a car to make a big elastic band. And we'd buy the logs for £1.50 and we'd sell the logs as bundles of sticks for £7.50. You know, we'd make a few bob. And somebody reported us to say we were running a business from the back of the house, little boys chopping sticks. So the council put a demand in to say that we owed them £6,000 in arrears for rent, and they put the rent up to maximum rent. I was 16, and I was away in Denmark, boxing in Esbjerg and Copenhagen, and my dad came home to try and sort this issue out with the council. about the rent, 2 little boys chopping sticks. And the council made an example of my family. So I'm away in Denmark boxing. They had a 4-day siege, a 4-day battle with the bailiffs trying to get into my family's home with 6 young children in the house. Some of my dad's friends stood and fought in the house against the bailiffs. And there was a 4-day siege. I didn't know this was going on. I'm in Denmark boxing. So I'm phoning home. I can't get an answer on the phone. So I ring my nana. My nana answered the phone. I said, Nana, I'm trying to... She said, oh, your mum's okay, your mum's okay. I said, what do you mean my mum's okay? She said, your mum's tried to kill herself. I said, no, she has. My mum's the happiest woman in the world. My mum wouldn't do that. During the siege, my mum's cut her wrists and stuck a knife in her stomach. My little brother, Connolly, was holding her hand. I didn't know this was going on. When I got picked up when I came home, after 4 days of a siege, the police were called in, and my grandfather was a sergeant in the Irish police. My sister's married to a policeman in New York. He's retired now. My family's a good family. When the police were called in, my dad surrendered. Him and the men that were in the house. So they've no arguments with the police. And there's a picture on the front page of the newspaper. So I got the paper of him shaking hands with the chief of police. The police were embarrassed of what they had to do to get involved because the bailiffs couldn't get in. So when I got picked up at Dublin Airport, I got dropped to the bottom of my road. And as I come in, I dropped my bag and I dropped my sports bag. My dad was sitting on a rocking chair outside the house. All my family's belongings, all on the street. All my boxing trophies, all smashed. The bailiffs smashed up. I had one big trophy like that when I boxed against Fairbairn House. Biggest trophy I've ever had, that size. Smashed to bits. Didn't smash my medals. They couldn't smash the medals. But they smashed all my trophies. And my dad was sitting on a rocking chair because he had to keep a vigil at the house, what belongings we had. My brothers and sisters were put into friends' houses around. And it was wrong what they'd done. The council at the time, part of the Irish government, were proved corrupt 20 years later. But the damage had already been done. It was wrong what they'd done to us. It broke up a family. It was never the same again after that, you know. But I wasn't there. I'm not saying it would have made a difference if I'd have been there. I've apologised to my brothers and sisters that I wasn't there.
Now, why was your mum cutting her wrists in protest?
She was distraught at what was going on, you know. And to bring a woman, a mother of 7, to do something like that in front of my little brother, Connolly's never been the same. He witnessed that. All my brothers and sisters, but Connolly was beside my mum. It should never have happened.
No.
And the people, if they're still alive, that done that to us, should be ashamed of themselves. And the ones, if they've gone, if they're dead, I hope they've gone to hell because what they did to us. You know, they should never have done it to us. We were a good family, Liam. You know, none of us had been in trouble with the police. I'm the only one that ever got into trouble with the police. And I'm ashamed of that. I'm ashamed that I've got to carry that to the grave.
How did that come about?
I'll tell you how that came about, Liam. When my boxing career finished, like a lot of fighters, we're in limbo land. We don't know what to do because boxing is our livelihood. And you're only getting your paycheck for your last fight. So I went into limbo land. My boxing career was finished because of a bad car accident. And
what happened there?
I was on a coach, on a taxi at the coach I was on. I shot my shoulder, my jaw, my knee. And I was in hospital for several weeks. And my boxing was over. When I got out of prison, I made a comeback into boxing. And there was a big write-up in the boxing news. It said, because all I knew how to do is fight. That's all I know how to do. I have no education. I left school with 2 swimming certificates. I work security. But I know how to fight. So I thought, I'll make a comeback into boxing. I didn't like being Joe the convict. I thought I'd be Joe the boxer again. And there was a big write-up in the boxing news. It said, George Foreman makes the comeback after 10 years. Big Joe Egan makes the comeback after 12 years. To get mentioned in the same paragraph as one of the greatest heavyweights of all time was incredible.
You've had a lot of good testimonies written about you by some very, very good people, which speaks volumes.
I don't do anybody any wrong. If I make a mistake, and I've made plenty of them in my life. I say I'm sorry, you know, and I don't intentionally do anybody any wrong, you know. I try to carry myself the best I possibly can, pride myself on my manners. And when I got into trouble, Liam, I was running a pub when I retired from boxing, first time round. I didn't know what to do. And Paddy Finn, ex-Irish heavyweight champion who'd boxed for my amateur club, he had to retire because of a trapped disc in his back. And he came over to Birmingham, big Irish community in Birmingham. I'd boxed in Birmingham as an amateur on a couple of occasions. And he run the Dubliner pub in Digbeth. And I came over to visit him. And he said, look, I've made a life after boxing, Joe. If you want to come over and work for me, he said, you make a life for yourself after boxing. So I went home, spoke to my dad. My dad said, you won't be in better company, son. He said, you couldn't get better company than the Finns. Paddy Finn, a good man, his father, boxer Finn. So I came over, I'd done two two MBQ certificates, and I'd done a BII certificate, British Institute of Innkeeping, and very proud, because like I said, I left school with nothing, no education, don't read or write so good. So I'm proud as punch. I become the licensee of the Dubliner pub. Met loads of the boxers, because it was frequented by a lot of boxers. Lads I boxed against. And then the Lyndhurst pub came up. I went over to see this pub, big function room on the pub. And me and my ex-business partner, we took over the Lyndhurst. We took over in September 97. And we had 2 boxing tournaments in the function room. We had a night of champions, Bunny Johnson, the first black British heavyweight champion, Ernie Shavers, Rob Norton, the former cruiserweight champion, Richie Woodall, the super middleweight champion, came to my pub. Paul Barber, Denzel out of Only Fools and Horses, my friend, came to visit the pub. This pub was on a housing estate that was a hard housing estate, but with good people. And we took the pub from doing £1,000 a week in 1997 to £16,000 a week. We had boxing tournaments. We had a great staff. We had quiz nights. We had discos. We had functions. We had incredible the way we took it, you know. And it was a safe haven, you know. It was a safe haven. And the racketeers then, on the 19th of July, 1998. People think this only happens in movies. This happens in real life. It's happened to me. And my business partner, who's ex-French Foreign Legion, Medal of Honor winner, a tough, dangerous man, soldier. We had a demand on the 19th of July, 1998 for £500 a week protection money. And I thought, is this for real?
How did they approach you? So this is a firm of gangsters.
Yeah, a family that had run Birmingham run a particular region of Birmingham for 15 years. They'd actually burnt down 2 of Paddy Finn's pubs, right? One of the family, I won't mention the name because I'm not going to glorify them. One of the family members had been in an incident where he'd actually killed his best friend. So if they can kill your best friend, what chance have people that they don't like got? These are dirt, scum of the earth. Right, protection racketeers, parasites.
And did they walk in and demand it or call you up?
It was a Sunday morning and I was standing at my bar and 4 of them walked into my bar. And 3 of them sat down in the corner and 1 of them stood at the bar. And he said, I want to see the landlord. And I said, well, I'm the licensee. How can I help you? He said, we want the door. And I said, sorry? He said, we want to take the door, £500 a week. We'll make sure you don't have any trouble from this particular family. My 2 friends that were sitting at the bar, Jason McAlinden was sitting at the bar, and the man who worked for me, John, ex-paratrooper, sitting at the bar. My 2 friends playing the game of pool, John McBean and Warren Wigan, ex-featherweight and ex-heavyweight, playing the pool. So I raised my voice. I said, you're demanding protection money from me? So I got the attention of John and Warren. Jason and John, they've come alive. Because I know these 4 geezers, I thought, these are carrying some sort of weapon. Whether it be a gun, whether it be a knife, I don't know. But I got the attention of John and Warren. So suddenly John come to the bar. He's a big powerhouse of a man. So he leaned over the guy. he more or less told him to leave in his nice way. So he left. The three guys that were sitting in the corner, Dave stood up. Warren was watching them. Jason was watching them. I'm watching the one that left and the three. I'm watching everything. Anyway, they left. That was the 19th of July, 1998. I told my business partner what had happened. Like a true soldier, he said, let's take it to them. I said, no, Tommy, we're not taking it to them. I said, I'm a licensee. I'm getting a second bite of the apple. I can't afford to lose this. I've got a good living. I'm living upstairs in the pub. I'm driving a nice car. I'm making a nice income. Let the police deal with it. So I reported it to the police. Andy Gilbert was the police officer I dealt with, Sergeant Andy Gilbert. Good, kind, decent police officer. Good man. So all through the week there was threats. The following Sunday, the 26th of July 1998, I got a phone call from a friend of mine, publican. He said, Joe, this gang's gathering. They're going to attack. So I phoned Andy. Andy said, I'm on my way to you, Joe. He said, I radioed the station. He said, I'll get these gangs dispersed. As Andy was on his way to me, he got sent to a Mickey Mouse alarm call on the Bromford. 30 minutes later, there's 37 men on my car park with a handgun, a shotgun, hatchets and machetes. We had a Sunday communion on in the function room. There was a 25-minute pitch battle. I got shot twice. It was a horrific day. A horrible, horrible bloodbath of a day. Headlines in the newspapers. The battle at the Lyndhurst made the Braveheart film look like a Walt Disney movie. Because people lost limbs, hands, legs. It was a savage battle. Blessings of God, nobody died. I was badly wounded. An old man that had fought in World War II, an old man called Tim O'Regan. My good friend Steve Dalton, he was shot twice. He stepped out of the doors. He ran at the guns. Bravest man I've ever seen in my life. He ran at the bullets. Got 2 bullets, got hit twice. I hid behind a wall. I'm not ashamed to say it. I was scared. I hid behind a wall. I'd never been in a gunfight before. I've been in many, many fights, but never in a gunfight. And I hid behind a wall. Dalton ran at the bullets, got hit twice. I blessed myself. I thought my friend's dead. Blessings of God, he didn't die. But he often said afterwards when I spoke to him, he said, Joe, my wife and sister was in that pub. If them animals had got in the door, I said, Steve, as far as I'm concerned, you've done it for us all. Bravery beyond the call of duty for friends. Mike Tyson presented him with an award at a big dinner in front of 1,500 people at the Hilton Hotel in Birmingham at the airport, and thanked him personally in front of an audience of 1,500 people. Thank you for putting your life on the line for my brother Joe. Brave, brave man. That day when Dalton got hit twice, the handgun was thrown on the floor. It jammed after 3 shots. It was a 5-shot handgun. It jammed after 3 shots. So when it hit the floor, Tim O'Regan stepped out with his hands up. I know these boys. I can stop this. This is a man that fought in World War II, survived World War II, an Irishman. As he stepped out with his hands up, I stepped out to pull him in from what was coming. And as I stepped out to pull him in behind the wall, the man that was doing the shooting, I won't name him, I won't glorify this scumbag. He was handed a sawn-off shotgun, and he blasted the sawn-off shotgun, and he blew the hip clean out of Tim O'Regan. Splattered his hip, the man had a hip replacement. Some of the shotgun pellets hit me. And I smelled some stenches in my life. You know, I never smelled the stench like the smell of burning skin. And it was mine and Tim's and Steve Dalton's skin burning from the heat of the wounds from the bullets. And it was horrific stench.
Just one gunman.
The same man that done the shooting with the handgun, done the shooting with the shotgun. Pure evil. I've looked into the eyes of many men on the doors and many men in a boxing ring. I've never looked into evil like it in my life. He blasted an old man. He blasted an old man so he could hit me. He'd already shot my friend. And I phoned the police during that battle 4 times, begging for help. I was wounded, badly wounded. My friends were badly wounded. And I'm begging for help. There was women and children. There was a communion in the function room. You can only fight so much when the odds are against you.
What were the numbers? How many of them? How many of you?
People say there was more than 37. There was at least 37 of them armed with hatchets and machetes, handgun and shotgun. People say there was a lot more that didn't get onto the car park. that when they saw what had come onto the car park getting beaten by the bravery of what was in that pub, brave men and brave women that fought for their lives because they came to kill that day. We fought for our lives.
And how many of you was there?
Well, I know 9 of the guys that fought personally, right? 9 of the guys that fought, because these were some of my closest friends, you know.
Boxers?
Yeah, some of them ex-boxers.
It's a tough men were in there that day.
Like I said, we were blessed that day, but the pub was frequented by a lot of boxers. You know, there was a communion on in the function room. There were some travelling men that were in the function room that came out to fight, you know. A brave race, you know, travelling community.
That'll explain why they turned up armed.
Well, they knew what they were coming to do. They've been doing it for 15 years, butchering and maiming and killing in some cases. You know, I know of one murder that they've done, maybe more, but I know of one. Pure evil.
And how does a battle like that come to an end?
Because as they were losing, they retreated because of the bravery of what came out of the Lyndhurst, the courageous men and women. Men and women. There was women fought that day. You know, women attended the wounded. There was a lot of us wounded. I wasn't the only one wounded. There was a lot of us wounded.
Did you manage to take a few of them out?
I was badly wounded, so I didn't do much. I was badly wounded because there was a lot of them badly wounded on that side. So I'm not saying who done the damage. As far as I'm concerned, I was wounded. I didn't do any damage. The damage was done to me. Dalton was badly wounded, so he didn't have to do any damage, but there was damage done to that side. When I went to hospital, this is fact. I can state this as fact. When I went to hospital, in the back of an ambulance with Tim, badly wounded, I'm now being brought into Good Hope Hospital. I haven't talked about this. I'm brought into Good Hope Hospital, and as I'm being brought in the ambulance drivers that took some of the guys that had attacked the pub in them ambulances came over to my ambulance driver and said, "We've got all the gangs from the battle at the Lyndhurst here." And I've said there wasn't any gangs. There was a gang that had attacked the pub, and I'm badly wounded. And this man here is even more wounded than me. Is there a police presence in this hospital? They said, yeah, there's a police presence in the hospital. So I'm now brought into the hospital, Good Hope Hospital. I'm sitting in the casualty ward. Tim O'Regan's being attended to. And as I'm sitting there, 2 guys walk past me. I'm in Dodo land, because now my bite at the apple the second time is gone. It's gone. I'm lucky to be alive. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking to myself, why me? Not on a pity trip, but I'm sitting there wounded, and 2 guys walk past, and one of them put his hand to my forehead like as if he was shooting me in the head. I've stood up off my chair and I've knocked the 2 of them out. One of them turned out to be the brother of one of the guys who was badly wounded on the car park. Right? He'd been badly wounded on the car park, and his brother had come to see him. He'd been told, I don't know whether he was one of the attackers, I don't know. But I knocked the 2 of them out in the casualty ward of the hospital. And I've picked up a chair, because as far as I'm concerned, when I was attacked, they were balaclavaed up and scarved up. The only one that didn't have a mask on was the man that done the shooting. Every other one of them had balaclavas on and scarves. So I don't know who's attacking me. So I'm now in a casualty ward. I pick up a chair to fight for my life as far as I'm concerned. That stage, the police come running in. Calm down. I said, you've walked me into a trap. You've walked me into a trap. I leave that hospital badly wounded and attend the Heartlands Hospital later on that evening and get the shotgun pellets stuck out of me. Right? I'm charged. They closed my pub for a number of weeks. I'm the victim, but now I'm being charged. Because of what happened at the pub, they charged my doorman, Danny Brown, who stayed at my premises to mind my home, my money and my belongings. Danny Brown. He'd fought. They charged me and they charged Danny. Danny's charges were dropped. I eventually go to court. I beat the charges in court. All I done was defend myself.
What were you charged with?
Attempted murder. Headlines in the newspapers when I beat the charges. Justice prevails. Headlines in the newspapers. I was the victim. And now I'm being charged. I'm being insult to injury.
I'm trying to make sense of that. This firm's turned up armed to the teeth.
Armed to the teeth.
To Well, murder as many as they can. They tried to murder 3 of you. So how was you charged with attempted murder? Who?
I was the one that was the landlord of the pub. I was the scapegoat for the negligence of the police, right? So I'm charged. I beat the charges. Headlines in the newspapers, justice prevails. But they confiscate all my belongings. They've taken so much of my personal belongings, albums of photographs, personal belongings. I got a phone call this day after I beat the charges. This is fact. I'm not making this up. Come and collect your stuff from Queen's Road Police Station. So I went, okay. I'd sold everything I had to defend the court battle. My car, my watch that my mum and dad got me for my 18th birthday, the ring they got me for my 21st, my leather coat, everything I had to pay legal fees. So now, I haven't even got a taxi fare to go to Queen's Road Police Station. Eddie B, my DJ, came into the pub at that moment in time. And he said, Joe, come and have a look at my new car. I said, Eddie, can you give me a lift to Queen's Road Police Station? Now, when I was charged, I took very ill. To go from never being in trouble in your life, at that stage of my life, I'd never been in trouble. This is why I got into trouble. I'm not making excuses because I'm ashamed of me getting into trouble. I'd done a crime to pay legal fees. I allowed people to park stolen cars on my car park. I was fighting on 3 fronts. I was fighting for my home in Ireland. I was fighting the brewery who were trying to evict me as the landlord, saying I wasn't a fit and proper person, and I was fighting an attempted murder charge, and I ran out of money. And when this man asked if he could park stolen cars on my car park, he gave me money. I was at the lowest ebb of my life. I said, yeah, and I gave in to crime. And when I got found guilty, rightly so, because what I'd done was wrong, I remember looking up to the gallery and I saw my dad hold his head in his hands crying. And the only other time I'd ever seen my daddy cry was when his dad died. I was only a little boy. I was cradling my brother in my arms. And I watched my dad crying the whole way of our house. But my mum told him that his dad had died. I didn't know what was going on. I just got so scared. And now I'm seeing my dad cry for the second time in my life. So his daddy dying and me getting sent to prison, found guilty of a crime that I'd committed, had the same effect on my dad as his dad died. And even when I tell that story, I feel sick inside. I feel ashamed that I brought tears to my dad's eyes. I'd done wrong and I got punished. And when I was in prison, I originally got 2.5 years. And the West Midlands Police, because I'd exposed them before of corruption, tried to increase the sentence to 7 years. They increased it to 4 because they wanted to punish me for what I'd done, standing up to them. I got an email from the sergeant. He's now an inspector, I believe, Andy Gilbert, a fine police officer. I got an email from him. I don't do emails, but my agent showed me. And I'm sorry, he said, you didn't get the service you deserved on the day of that particular attack. He told me to summons him to court. He spoke on my behalf. And he sent me this email. I'm sorry you didn't get the service you deserved on that day of that attack. And he said, I'm even more sorry that your life spiraled out of control after that particular day. And I thought, how lovely was a man like that to say that, a fine man.
How was jail?
I saved a man's life in jail. I saved a man's life. I was in the St. John's Ambulance Brigade when I was a kid, and I know they were the first aid. And when one of the OCGs, a part-time prison officer, ex-military, ex-police officer, whatever job he'd done, this was to subsidise his pension, took a heart attack. I attended to him and set the alarm off. And the response team were able to save his life. I got a commendation from the governor. He supervised my stay in prison. He didn't send me to prison. I sent me to prison. What I did was wrong. I have to live in this shame. So be it. But I won't ever do it again. And like I said, it made my dad cry.
Is that worse to you than the actual sentence itself?
I live with it every day. I remember looking up and seeing him holding his head in his hands. And I was like, seeing him as a little boy, holding his head in his hands. I'm a blubbering wreck most of the time, Liam.
Why do you think that is?
No, I don't know, pal. I've had such a hard life.
Full of love, full of sadness, full of what's in there?
Full of everything. I had the affection from my mum and dad. Best affection a boy could be given. Didn't have a lot of years with my dad because he was away working a lot of the times. But I wanted to do him proud, same as I want to do my mum proud. But yeah, I've had a hard life. This is just some of it, Liam. You know, I've had battles in every city I've ever been in. New York, I've had battles in New York. I've had battles in Belfast. I've had battles in Dublin. I've had battles in Birmingham. Because as I said earlier, I belt the royalty out of respect. I won't belt the bullies. I can't do it. You know, like it says on the back of my shirt, the word fear. I spell the word fear, face everything and rise. The coward spells it, forget everything and run. I'm no coward. And that's me, you know. And I'm not on my own. There's so many brave people out there, you know. But I've had a hard life. Even now, you know, it's not easy.
People will pretend they're cool, but it's a tough slog.
I still go to work. You know, I get up, I go to work. I'm very blessed in life now, the people that I work for. I've got a good wife. My wife works hard as well. You know, Ruth, she works hard. People say about me being brave. She is braver than me. She took me on. She took me on when I was a sinking ship. I've let her down many, many, many times.
How?
Just many times. Going to prison was one.
So you've been married for a long time?
We were together 26 years. We were engaged for 19. I've messed up many, many times in them 26 years. Many times. Going to prison, I got 3 meals a day. I had a warm bed to sleep in at night. She had to work hard to get 3 meals a day. You know, she was holding the fort when I was in prison.
Not the same woman that had an affair with Michael Flatley?
No, Lisa. She tragically died there recently, God rest her. She died at 51 years of age. She got cancer and she died. She fought the cancer for years. I used to speak to her and wish her well and hope. But she abandoned me when my ship was sinking. She abandoned me. She went with Michael Flatley. And Ruth jumped onto a sinking ship.
How did that come about? How could someone go from a man like you to a man like Michael Flatley, just complete opposite people?
I got her brother a job on the door, her brother Noel, in Dublin. He worked the door in Annabelle's. And Lisa and her sister Kira went to the club and Michael Flatley was in there, biggest star in the world. And she ended up courting Michael Flatley. But listen, he was earning £1 million a week. I could see the attraction. I nearly started courting him myself, to tell you the truth. But Ruth jumped on board with me as a sinking ship. She helped me.
That's when you know.
Listen, she's a good woman. I'm not a good man. You know, I've let her down so many times. I've hurt her so many times. Not physically, I've never raised my hand to a woman.
Have you hurt her intentionally?
No. You know, getting into trouble with the police and going to prison and even this fight. She doesn't want me to fight. We have a friendship. Me and Ruth we have a great friendship. And she doesn't want to see me getting hurt.
Friendship important to you?
Yeah. I've got the same friends I've had since I've been a little boy, and I've gathered as I've gone along the road. You know, I've been blessed. People say if you can count 5 friends on one hand in your life, you're doing well. I'd need to be an octopus. I've got some good friends. You know, some of them poor, some of them rich, but just good friends. Friends that have stood and took bullets for me. Friends that have stood and helped me financially. You know, friends that have fed me.
Tell me how you rebuilt your life once you come out of jail.
Yeah, when I came out of jail...
Did you go back to fighting?
Yeah, I had a comeback when I fought a guy called Mark Williams, good friend of mine, and I won in the 5th round. It wasn't the best way to win. I lost the first 2 rounds. Mark was too fast, moving. He was a lot sharper than me after being out of the ring for 12 years. I won the second 2 rounds, so we're now going into round 5. So 2 each. He won the first 2, I won the second 2. So 2 each gone into the 5th round. And I've pushed him along the ropes. His arm got dislocated. His arm hung by his side. Stopped in the 5th round. Wasn't the best way to win, but it was a victory. But I was back being Joe the boxer again. I wasn't Joe the convict. And I was very proud, you know. And then I did that dinner for Ken Purchase and Charlie Hale. Cass Pennant gave me a part in his movie. Done my book, gave me a part in his movie, Cass. Me and Ruth, we played the landlord and landlady of Britannia pub. And while I was on the film set, I met an actor called Tama Hassan. He said, Joe, you got a good presence on screen. He said, you fancy an acting career? I thought, I've acted my way through a boxing career. I'll give it a go. So he introduced me to his agent. She said, there's a part in a Sherlock Holmes Warner Brothers movie for a character called McMurdo to fight Robert Downey Jr. Go to the casting. So I went to the casting, said the lines. I said, look into the camera lens, give an intimidating stare. So I've done that. They said, wow, you've got an amazing intimidating stare. I said, I've had to look into the eyes of Mike Tyson and Lennox Lewis to try and intimidate them, to intimidate a couple of casting agents. There's no problem. Got the part. Went along to the read-through with my friend Richard Grimes. My nameplate, Joe Egan, next to Jude Law, Robert Downey Jr., Rachel McAdams, who got the Academy Award for Southpaw, Eddie Marson, all the stars of the film, and the hierarchy of Warner Brothers sitting opposite Guy Ritchie and Joel Silver, the CEO of Warner Brothers. And Guy Ritchie said, Joe, I've been trying to get you in one of my films for a long time. And Robert Downey Jr. leaned in. This is Iron Man. And he said, Joe, you come with a fearsome reputation. I couldn't believe these people even knew me, Liam. But they knew me through Mike Tyson. Like a lot of people know me through Mike Tyson. People say, Joe, you're milking it a little bit with the Mike Tyson story. I've earned the right to milk it. I'll be telling this story to my last breath. Mike Tyson hit me and I was able to take his punches. Stayed on my feet. I will tell that story to my last breath. I've earned the right to tell it. So, these people knew me through Mike. We travelled down in a minibus to do the practice fight. And Guy said, how are things, Joe? I said, things are okay, Guy. I'm making ends meet. He said, has your agent told you what you're getting for the fight scene? I said, I never even asked, Guy. I'm just so honoured to be in your film. When he told me, Liam, more than I got in any of my professional fights, I was deadly serious. I said, Guy, for that money, Robert Downey Jr. can really hit me. You can kick me as well if you want to. He took it for the laughing. And he said, Joe, I don't want you being beaten up. I said, Guy, I've been beaten up for a lot less. I'll do a few weeks in hospital for that money. Then I didn't have to get beaten up in the fight. I got a part in the prison scene. That wasn't in the script. Guy wrote it in separate. And I get called my own name. I get called Big Joe by an Academy Award-winning actor in a Warner Brothers movie directed by Guy Ritchie. And it's made my mum, God rest her, so proud, you know, to see me on screen getting called my own name. She never got to see prize fighter. Russell Crowe calls me Joe in prize fighter, so I get called my own name by 2 Academy Award winners in big movies. And like I said, it's made the beatings I've took in life worthwhile. To make my mum proud, and I hope my dad was proud of my boxing, because that's all I wanted to do was make them proud, Liam. And the parts have been getting bigger now with experience. I get to play the tough guy. I get to play the gangster. I've had to live the life of a tough guy, you know, standing on doors, working security, working as a bodyguard, you know, in the boxing ring. I've had to live that life. So to portray a tough guy on screen has been quite easy, really, to tell you the truth. I haven't had a testing part.
And you enjoy it?
Love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely love it. I'd love to be a baddie in the Bond film. I would love. People ask me what would be your ideal. Obviously, I'd love to be Bond, but that would never happen. There's no point in even dreaming that. I dreamed about becoming a champion of the world. That never happened. But to be a baddie in Bond, I've always loved the baddies in Bond. Jaws and Oddjob, you know. I've always loved it. But the most recent baddies haven't been great.
Terrible. When you compare them to the old school villains.
You know, Scaramanga and Goldfinger, brilliant. You know, even the henchmen, brilliant. The henchmen in the recent Bond films haven't been memorable. For me, who's a Bond fanatic.
Nor me.
You know, haven't been memorable. If you ask me now, name a couple of the recent, you know, Daniel Craig baddies. You think, you know, I can't.
Who's your favourite Bond?
Oh, I loved Roger Moore because I thought he was the epitome of an English gentleman. You know, Sean Connery was rough and ready, same as Daniel Craig, rough and ready. Roger Moore was an English gentleman, you know, suave, looked the part. Pierce Brosnan was a great Bond as well because he looked suave. He wasn't rough and ready. But Sean Connery was fantastic. I loved them all. You know, I loved them all. I just love Bond. You know, it's an incredible, the talking now. I was listening to the radio coming here this morning. the actors, one of the actors that's in, I think it's James Norton. He's in the new Bob Marley film. I think his name is James Norton. And they're talking about he's one of the favourites for Bond. Tom Hardy's up there mentioned for Bond. You know, they haven't named the new Bond.
I'd love to see Tom Hardy as Bond.
Great actor. I know Tom. I've never met him, but I know I've spoken to him on the phone. My good friend Jay Howlett. Great story. Do you want to hear the story about Jay Howlett? Jay Howlett sat next to Tom in school, right? This is an incredible man. Him and his wife Carly. Jay Howlett sat next to Tom in school, and they were boyhood friends. And Jay has helped Tom prepare. Jay's a fitness coach. He was an ex-Chelsea fireman, 14 years a Chelsea fireman, and went in and saved the family in a fire and got badly injured, saving this particular family. And had to retire as a fireman. He still works in the fire service. He lectures on fire prevention. But he had to retire as a serving fireman after 14 years because he got injured, badly injured, while saving 3 generations of the same family. I've been to the restaurant with him. I've met the Italian family that he saved. And incredible bravery. All firemen are brave to running against the flames to save people. Bravest of the brave. And him in particular. But he's Tom's good friend, and he's trained Tom to build up for Warrior. He's trained him to build up for the Bronson part. But I've spoken to Tom on the phone with Jay, and my other friend Matt Legg, ex-heavyweight. He fought Anthony Joshua. Matt, good fighter. He helped Tom build up for the Warrior film. Helped him prepare, training him for the Bronson film. So I've met friends of Tom, and I've spoken to him on the phone. An incredible actor, and a lovely man.
Do you think you'll end up on a film with him?
I'd love to.
Have you got any offers out there at the moment? Anything pending?
When my mum and dad died in 2022, which was a really horrible year for me, 2023 wasn't good either. I was still mourning now. I started to fall out with my agent. My agent was pushing me to go for parts, and I said, "Look, I'm not in the right frame of mind. I'm barely holding it together." My bosses that I spoke about earlier on, Ali and John, they've helped me cope. They've been very, very kind to me. I'm security for them, but they secure my life. My wife, she's been strong for me as well. But I'm just about holding it together. 2023, I've lost them. I watched my mum die over 18 days. She was nil by mouth for 15 days, 5 days without hydration. And I said to the doctors, if it was an animal, you'd put them asleep. Why? I wish I had the courage to put the pillow over her head. I couldn't do it. I watched her gasping for breath, and it was horrific. So 2023 was a hard year as well. We're only into 2024. I'm still struggling to cope with it. My dad got the dementia. I watched him lose it, and it was horrible to see. I remember when he got the Kuipers in his hands, and he said, "Son, if the day ever comes," he said, "where I can't clean my backside," he said, "it's time to go." 3 weeks before he passed away, he dirtied himself. My brother Connolly and my nephew Tom cleaned him, and I knew in my mind, even though he had dementia, we got him back certain days. I knew in my mind he will go soon. He won't. His dignity and pride was gone when you start dirtying yourself. So I lost them both, like I said, in 2022, and 2023 was a testing year as well. But my agent was putting pressure on me to go for parts, and I said, I couldn't string a sentence together on an audition. I couldn't focus. Lucky enough, my bosses were good to me. I didn't lose my job. But this year, I'm starting to focus again.
You feel ready again to do some more acting?
Yeah, I've signed up with a new agent, and I haven't been for any auditions with him yet because I've been busy focusing on interviews and stuff like this, trying to get this fight. I want this fight.
Well, I think it won't just be a fight. It'll be a big door opener as well to who knows where.
There's a lot of things happened so far, as a result of with the social media. I don't understand computers and things like that. Like I said earlier on, I'm not good at any of that stuff. But I've been to a Misfits boxing show and I've met a lot of the YouTubers. There's a young YouTuber helping me at the moment, Theo, an incredible young man, 18 years of age. I was introduced to him by my friend Graham, and Theo is the one that's organised the introduction to Mams from Misfits Boxing and KSI. I've met them and got on great with them, you know. And I met a lot of the YouTubers at the boxing show. And it's great, you know. And if I get to box on one of the Misfits boxing shows, I'll be buzzing. I'll be enjoying life again.
On the subject of boxing,
Yes.
in your opinion, who's the greatest ever heavyweight?
Muhammad Ali.
Without a doubt.
Shadow of a doubt. Without a shadow of a doubt. I met the man on 4 occasions. Blessed, privileged to be in the company of greatness. GOAT, GOAT, greatest of all time. To me, not just the greatest man to enter a boxing ring, but one of the greatest men to enter this world. Boxing was privileged to have that man. He could have turned his hand to American football. He could have turned his hand to baseball. He could have turned his hand to athletics. He was just a supreme athlete. And what he sacrificed for other people, you know. The Vietnam War is just one instance. He stood up, he said, that's wrong. And it's been proven right. He was right. That war was wrong. And he suffered. He was stripped of his world title, banned from boxing because of what he said was wrong at the time, and he wouldn't go and fight in Vietnam in a wrong war. But just an incredible human being. And like I said, to be in his presence, to be in his company, to have met him 4 times. I went to his house in Michigan. Al Capone used to own his house, and I was in his house. I met him in his home, and going through the gates, GOAT, greatest of all time. It was incredible. In Louisville, his house was in Michigan. We were in the Muhammad Ali Center in Louisville. I met him in Washington, D.C., and I met him in New York. And I got photographs with him. I got a promo card with a picture of me and Muhammad Ali on it. But yeah, that to me, I spoke to Mike about.
Tyson had a hell of a lot of respect for him, didn't he?
Loves him. Mike adores him.
When asked who would win, he always says,
Muhammad Ali.
Ali.
I've spoken to Mike about it many times. Listen, Mike had difficulty with boxers. If you look at the men that went the distance with Mike, Tony TNT Tucker, Mitch Green, you know, 2 fine boxers. I sparred Mitch for the fight. But they weren't anything like Muhammad Ali. They were in there and they survived. Tony Tucker, he gave Mike difficulty. But Muhammad Ali would have given Mike so much difficulty. I just think that Muhammad Ali would have been better on the night than Tony TNT Tucker was and would beat Mike. But that's just my opinion. But I think Mike knows himself. The men that gave Mike difficulty were boxers. You stood and fought Mike, you were in trouble, you know, because his punch power was too powerful. His speed of delivering that punch was very fast. His head movement. People didn't give Mike the credit that he deserved. Mike isn't just a puncher. Mike had a phenomenal boxing brain. See, once he got you in trouble, he would not let you off that hook. You know, he was just a vicious finisher.
His rib into the uppercut combo was
unbelievable. I was fortunate because I'm not tall, see. I'm 6'1", it's tall enough. But see the 6'5", 6'6", 6'7" guys, they got that extra 4 or 5 inch momentum, and it was like a coiled spring. When he came up, I saw him lift men off the floor. Big powerhouses of men, lifting them off the floor, like something you see in a cartoon movie. See when they're showing the cartoons, they get hit in the chin and go, ooh, through the hell of that. I seen Mike do that. They're powerful, powerful men. Men that didn't get in there to try and survive. I tried to survive. I tried to stay away. I tried to hold on. I tried to numb his punches. I tried to nullify his punches. Because the longer I lasted, as I said earlier on in the interview, the more money I earned for my brothers and sisters. So if I was too brave and got knocked out, it would have been time to go home. So the longer I lasted, the more money I earned. So I was never too brave. I was a bit more cautious than some of the others that were too brave for their own good.
Now, I can tell that you're Mike Tyson's friend because you've got both your ears intact.
What happened in that fight with Holyfield was wrong. But what Evander was doing to Mike was wrong as well. Evander had clashed heads with Mike. Evander, one of the greatest fighters of all time as well, the real deal. But he clashed heads with Mike. And Mike felt that the clashes of heads was wrong, and Mike retaliated. And they're since friends.
I was going to say they're good friends now, aren't
Yeah,
they?
of course they are. It was just something that shouldn't have happened on both sides. You know, Evander clashed heads. Mike took offence to the clash of heads. The referee didn't warn Evander for the clash of heads, and Mike retaliated with a bite. You know, but it was already being dragged into a gutter fight, and it shouldn't have happened. You know, two wrongs don't make a right.
Was you watching it live?
Yeah.
Could you believe what you were seeing, or did you think to yourself, "That's Mike"?
No, it was wrong what happened. But Mike might have been concussed. He'd had a bad clash of heads as well, and he was in a bit of trouble with the eye getting cut from a clash of heads that he felt was a deliberate clash of heads, and he retaliated. But great champion, Evander.
In their prime, who did you prefer, Chris Eubank or Nigel Benn?
Nigel Benn I loved because he went out. He beat Iran Barkley. I knew Iran from Gleason's gym. Iran was after beating Tommy Hearns. And he went out and he beat Iran. He went into the back garden of America, of these fighters. But I love Chris as well. Because Chris, how he made the weight, his physique, his body, incredible. To get down, he must have killed himself making the weight, the diet that he would have been on to make that weight. And to sustain the strength. And his chin, Chris Eubank's chin is granite. Nigel Benn's punch power is phenomenal. But I admire and respect them both. They're both my friends. You know, I've been in the company of both of them on the same stage in the company of both of them, which is incredible because the build-ups to their fight.
Half the fight's psychological, isn't it?
You have to. You've got to. Listen, there's fights I got into, I knew I hadn't got a chance. I'd not got a chance against Lennox Lewis. Lennox Lewis was going to beat me 7 days a week, twice on a Sunday if he wanted to. But in my mind, I believed if he has a bad day and I have an exceptional day, I might win. And that's what you hope for when you're getting in against a better man than you. You just hope that they're going to have a bad day. And that's what you hope for, if they're better than you. And I've been in against so many better men than me. So many. Some of them I've beaten because they had a bad day and I had a better day. Like I say, if this fight comes off with John Fury, I hope I have a better day than he does.
Well, look, I really hope the fight does come off for you and John Fury. For a lot of reasons. It'd be great for the sport. It will bring a hell of a lot of attention to the sport. And also, I think it'll open... I mean, John Fury doesn't need any more doors opening for him. There's enough open already. His son's world champion.
An incredible world champion.
Yeah, he is phenomenal. Yeah, absolutely love Tyson Fury. But for you, it will open a lot of new doors, which could be a real exciting future. But I want you to just, if you don't mind, as a finisher, a message to the youth or the young that will be watching this or listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. You're a fighting man. You've used your fists your whole life to protect yourself and get yourself out of situations. Nowadays, we're at critical mass where kids are going out armed with machetes and they're chopping each other up. They're stabbing each other for trivial things as living in a different postcode. The kids are killing themselves these days with blades. As a fighting man that's used his fists alone, what would your message be to the youth that are carrying blades?
We're living in a sad society. You know, when you see young boys and young girls getting stabbed to death, it's very, very tragic. It's very, very sad. And I've spoken in schools, I've spoken in prisons, I've spoken in youth clubs. I try to help as best I can. You know, I encourage people to get into a boxing gym. I encourage people to go to a youth club. I encourage people to take up some sort of sport, you know. Idle hands make work for the devil. You take a knife out, the chance are you're going to use it. You can live with regret afterwards while you're doing your long sentence in prison if you get captured. But you've ruined so many lives. You've took a life and ruined so many others. And it's very, very sad and very tragic. Like I said earlier on, boxing gives you self-respect and respect for others, and that's what society is missing today.
Final question.
Go ahead.
John Fury is sat right here, right now. What do you say to him?
Let the best man win in the boxing ring. Hopefully he'll beat me on the night. And I'd like to shake his hand and get into the boxing ring, touch gloves, smash each other to bits, and embrace at the end of the fight
And would that be your final fight?
It depends on how I get on. If I win, hopefully I will, and I win well, don't get wounded, I might do it again. They're talking about maybe one of the misfits boxing, one of the celebrities, and you don't know. It depends on how I feel after the fight with John. Depends on how I get on and if I'm not badly wounded. That's it, yeah. Most of the questions that I get asked, Liam, is how did it feel getting hit by Mike Tyson? Very painful. That's how it felt. You know, if he missed you with a punch, you'd get pneumonia from the draft, you know. But,
I would have imagined how it felt getting hit by Mike Tyson was pretty self-explanatory.
yeah,
Have you seen the man hit like a steam train?
unbelievable.
Yeah. And anything else you wanna put out
Yeah,
there?
just be nice to each other, that's all. You know, people ask me about how you want to be remembered in life as a nice guy, you know, and I just be nice to each other. And that's what I encourage people. When people ask me for my autograph, I always sign happiness. I wish people happiness. You can have all the money in the world and all the respect in the world, but if you're not happy, what good is it? You know, just be happy. Some people have nothing and they're happy. Some people have loads and they're unhappy. Just be happy, you know, and soldier on. That's all you can do, soldier on. And the darkest hour of any day is the hour just before the dawn. So things will brighten up. And that's the way I believe life. You know, I've had some dark moments, but I keep thinking there's light at the end of the tunnel.
There will be.
Yeah, of course. Liam, thank you.
Thanks for coming on,
My
man.
pleasure. Thank you.
I look
Thank you
forward
very much.
to seeing what happens with you and Big John.